الدنيا والفتنة. The explanation was that this is all material and temporary, that true success will come from something else. And the true success in the eyes of Allah will be something different that we achieve. To understand this, when we take a look at history, we can see that Allah has given us examples that not only began with our religion, but from beginning of Adam ila al-Khatam, that success will be in the same measure, that the same things that were successful for the people before our religion will be the same thing that's the success for us in this time. And which is why, when we take a look and we see how Allah describes this, we can look and see in Surah Baqarah, verse 132, that what would be the wasiyah of the Anbiya? What was the Anbiya wanted to achieve in this life? So we see Allah says, وَوَصَّى بِهَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ بَنِيهِ وَيَعْقُوبَ يَا بَنِيَّ إِنَّ اللَّهَ أَسْتَفَى لَكُمُ الدِّينَ فَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا أَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. This is the wasiyah of Ibrahim to his children and Yaqub to his children. Yaqub is the grandson of Ibrahim. Why did Allah choose to mention both of these? One explanation is to say that Yaqub's children are the ones from Yaqub's lineage comes the Bani Israel and comes the Yahudi faith as well as the Masihi faith. So saying that even the children of Yaqub had instruction that they should live their lives as Muslimin, and others that say, for example, it was a demonstration of showing the importance that this wasn't just a wasiyah that one Nabi left, but the wasiyah was so important that the Nabi himself and then his grandchildren would share the same wasiyah and same will and enjoyment that should be accomplished in this life. So the verse says that Ibrahim would tell his children and Yaqub would tell his children, Ya Baniya, O my sons, Allah has chosen for you a religion, so then therefore don't die in this world except that you die on the faith as a Muslim. If we looked at success in life, the greatest success in life is that I am someone who lives my life on Islam and dies on Islam, and my lineage is someone that lives and dies on Islam. And that's one of the most dangerous things for the country that we live in, is that do we have the ability to accomplish this goal, to live and die as Muslimin? One of the benefits that we had coming here was education. One of the benefits we had coming here from migrating was safety. One of the benefits was wealth. One of the benefits, you can list many benefits that were from migrating from a Muslim country that was going through difficulty, through war, through problems, through insecurity, through famine, to a country that promised all of these different elements. But we never talked about what are the risks that come from such a migration. We only looked at the benefits. That here we'll be safe, here we'll have money, here we'll have education, here we'll have houses. It's true, but what are the things that we're giving up? One of the most important things and most dangerous things that we're giving up is the threat to Iman that exists here. You see, in a Muslim country there may be corruption, there may be issues, but you will die, you'll be born a Muslim and you'll still die a Muslim. You may make mistakes along the way, you may have problems, no society is perfect. But there's no threat to your Iman. You live your life of Iman even if you're poor. But here, if I gain too much success, I give up my religion. I go through too many problems, I give up my religion. I don't focus and pay attention to going to the masjid, about learning about my faith, I can give up and lose my religion. The danger here is much more severe in the process that someone can start their life as a Muslim but end their life somewhere else if we're not careful. So this is why the verse, look at how Ibrahim and Yaqub give the wasiyah, La tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. Don't die except that you are a Muslim. The significance of this phrase isn't just in this verse. Allah in other places has this conversation as well too, where we see in Surah Al Imran, إِذْ قَالَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ أَسْلِمْ قَالَ أَسْلَمْتُ لِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. This is from Surah Baqarah, discussion with Ibrahim. But in Surah Al Imran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ حَقَّ تُقَاتِهِ وَلَا تُمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Don't die except that you're a Muslim. Understand something. إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌّ مُبِينٌ. Shaitan is your open enemy. The goal of shaitan is not one sin or two sins or many sins. Why? Because the sin can be forgiven. I can do istighfar, I can do tawbah, I can seek the wasila of Ahlul Bayt. I can be given the tawfiq to go to Hajj and my sins will be forgiven. I can be given the tawfiq to go to Karbala and all of my sins can be forgiven. Forget that, I can come to Shahr Ramadan, beseech Allah in one dua sincerely, Allah can forgive every sin that I've made. So meaning shaitan's interest in you and I is not that we commit sins, because sins can be forgiven. Ya ibadi ar-Rahman alladhina asrafu ala anfusihim la taqnatu min rahmatillah. Inna Allah yaghfiru dhunuba jami'a. Allah promises and says, don't lose hope in me, I can forgive all of your sins. Shaitan's actual goal, his real goal, is to make you go to hell. To go to hell, Allah can forgive sins, but what if he breaks your relationship with Allah? That there's no way back to Allah. This is the plan of shaitan. Is that somehow I need to get you away from Allah so that all of your sins, there's no one that you can turn back to. And if you can't turn back to Allah, then why would Allah forgive you? If He corrupts our belief in Allah, if He corrupts our relationship with Allah, and we don't believe in Him, why would Allah forgive that being who doesn't believe in Him? So this is why the verse is very particular and the language Allah uses is very particular. لا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. Don't die except that you have submitted to Allah and believe in Allah. Which is why the most important thing that we can achieve in our life is to make sure that our Islam is protected. If you lose your Islam, there's no way back to Allah and shaitan wins. That Allah will not forgive someone who doesn't believe in Him. Allah will not aid someone who doesn't believe in Him. This being the most dangerous thing that we have to face is also one of the most important responsibilities that we possess. That protect your iman, protect your religion. Understand Allah thoroughly. Invest your time in thinking and learning about Allah. Remember something, learning about Allah will not be that my brain is sufficient to comprehend Allah. If that was possible, that just by thinking about Allah, I can believe in Allah and have trust in Him, there would have been no need for Rasulullah. There would have been no need for Anbiya. The reality is, to understand Allah, you have to see how Allah describes Himself to you and follow His instruction. Many times what happens? We say, that doesn't make sense to me, therefore I don't believe it. This is from shaitan. This is the attack of shaitan. To say that if my aql is insufficient, that means that the religion is wrong, my aql is correct. But had the basis of aql been sufficient, we would not need Quran. We would not need Ahlul Bayt. Every person would have just thought about, looked around and said, yeah, okay, Allah is here. The truth is that to think about Allah and to ponder over Allah and to learn about Allah is not something I can do without Quran and without hadith of Ahlul Bayt and without a teacher to guide me in this process. And it's one of the most important investments we can make, because this is where shaitan's attack comes the closest. And that's it. We've faced the attack of shaitan, but we haven't seen the worst of shaitan. The worst of shaitan comes at the moment of death. Because in that moment of death and the sakaratul maut are some of the worst pain and most difficult condition you can be in. We have certain responsibilities. If someone is, for example, in ihtidar is a condition where they're about to die, we change our behavior around that person. We stop talking about worldly affairs. We only talk about Quran, we only talk about Islam, we recite dua. Why? Because in that moment, if my attachment is to dunya, and I'm thinking about, oh, I have my responsibilities, I have my bills, I have these obligations I need to fulfill, it makes it easier for shaitan to attack us in that moment. And what does shaitan do? Shaitan whispers. He says, this is your Islam that's causing you pain. Disbelieve for a minute, believe in shaitan for a minute, and I'll remove all of the pain from your life. And then you can go back to Allah. Let me fix your problem in just this 1 minute, and once I fix it, then you can disbelieve in me, you can curse me, you can do anything you want to. But in this 1 minute, I'll help you, I'll be your friend. But for me to help you, you can't believe in Allah. Now the one who's lost in this dunya, who doesn't understand the authority of Allah, that there can never be someone who protects you, أَن يَنْصُرُكُمُ اللَّهُ فَلَا غَالِبَ لَكُمْ وَإِن يَخْذُلْكُمْ فَمَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يَنْصُرُكُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ. Allah in the Quran makes a promise, and He says that if Allah helps you, no one can overcome you. And if Allah forsakes you, who can help you after Allah? If I haven't read this, if I haven't studied who is Allah and to know who Allah is in that moment of pain, because the pain of death is a pain that no one has experienced before. There's a riwayah that describes that Rasulullah, as Malikul Maut pulls the soul of Rasulullah stops him and he says, "Oh Malikul Maut, do you take everyone's soul as painfully as you're taking mine?" And Malikul Maut replies, "Ya Rasulullah, I have never taken a soul more gently than I am taking your soul." So meaning Rahmatul lil Alameen, the perfection of humanity, is describing that the pain of death for him was something difficult. So for us, we haven't experienced anything of that level. And which is why Rasulullah in that moment makes dua, "Oh Allah, ease the pain of death on my ummah." But for us, in that moment of pain is when shaitan will make his worst attack. And will say, "This pain too, I can alleviate it, but only if you believe in me. And to believe in me, you have to forego Allah." Others, actually ulama, narrate, and they say their own stories. They say, "I was lying sick in bed, and someone kept reminding me that Fulan bin Fulan owes me money. And I couldn't see who it was, but they kept saying, 'Don't forget, you have to collect the money. No one else knows he owes you money. Nothing can happen to you right now, otherwise you'll lose your money.'" He says, during this person speaking to me from the corner of my eye, they came and they sat next to me and they tried to get me to repeat the talqeen. Talqeen is given at 3 times. One before a person dies, which is a reminder, where we remind the person that when you die, the most important thing you need to know is who is your Lord, what is your book, who is your prophet, what is your imam, who is your imam. We do it before someone dies. We do it before we place them in the grave. And then the 3rd time we do it is after we close the grave. I'll explain to you, if you guys are interested, I'll explain. Do you guys want to hear this? Why? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. There's not too many, so we can talk today. I'll explain it to you. Allah's system is very intelligent. When you hear the hadith of the Day of Judgment, that there's 50 stations on the Day of Judgment, I'll be very impressed. Does anybody know what the first thing you'll be asked about on the Day of Judgment? Someone said it. What is it? As-salat, your prayers. أول ما سئل به يوم القيامة الصلاة إن قبلت قبلت ما سوى وإن ردت ردت ما سوى. The hadith of Imam Sadiq explains the first thing you're asked about on the Day of Judgment will be your prayers. If your prayers are accepted, everything else will be accepted. If your prayers are refused, everything else will be refused. The other thing you hear about the Day of Judgment, يوم ندعو كل أناس بإمامهم. That on the Day of Judgment, we will call every people with their imam. So when does Allah ask you, who is your God? Who is your imam? There's a filing system in place. That Allah asks you these questions of who is your God, who is your prophet, what is your book, who is your imam, as soon as you die. However you answer in that moment is where you get up on the Day of Judgment. The Day of Judgment is about actions, a'mal. Aqa'id and belief is established as soon as you die. So to help someone that they give the right answers as soon as they die, we do talqeen, the reminder. We keep reminding them that, hey, you need to get this right so that on the Day of Judgment, you're raised with Imam Zaman, you're raised with your Imam, you're raised with Ahlul Bayt. If you get these questions wrong as soon as you die, and your filing system is messed up, and you've submitted the wrong file by saying, I don't know how to answer these questions, then on the Day of Judgment, you'll be somewhere, Ahlul Bayt will be somewhere else. So hence, talqeen is really, really important. That talqeen is something that's done. It's mustahab, it's not wajib. But it helps to answer the questions of where do you want to be raised on the Day of Judgment? Who will be your imam? So the scholar is saying, I'm in so much pain, I feel like I'm about to die. And one person in the corner of my eye is saying, don't forget your debt. And another man in the middle of this comes, sits next to me and starts reciting talqeen and telling me to repeat after him. But I can't stop thinking about the money that I'm owed. He says, in that condition, I sat up and I told the guy saying talqeen, get away from me. How can I die when I have money to collect? And then he lied back down. Alhamdulillah, Allah preserved his life and he made it through this event, and therefore he tells his own story and he says, look at how severe the attack of shaitan was against me. I thought, I'm a scholar of Islam. I've been thinking about Allah all my life. But shaitan's attack was to remind me of dunya in such a way that my concern was that how can I die when I have dunya, I have responsibilities that I need to take care of. Who will take care of my children? Who will provide for the wealth of my family? Who will take care of these debts? I didn't write this money down. It'll disappear. My children will suffer for it. And he became so busy thinking about this money that he was ready to forget Islam in that moment. So this life that we possess, one of the most important things that we want to do is لا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون, that you don't die except that you're a Muslim. And to be able to do that, how do you overcome the attack of shaitan in that minute? If I don't have yaqeen and certainty that I know who Allah is and what Allah's role and responsibility is in my life, shaitan will distract me. Shaitan will corrupt me and take me away from Allah. So our goal is a necessity in this life to spend time thinking about making sure that you know how to answer these questions. The talqeen that it's repeated 3 times is because the questioning of munkar and nakir is so frightening. You've never seen an angel before. You've never been left alone before. You've never been in this environment where all of a sudden the curtains over your eyes are lifted and all of the dangers and evils that were around you are visible to you. And in the middle of that, Allah sends these 2 angels to ask you questions and have a conversation. This is why the discussion says, if you don't really believe it with your heart, in a very difficult situation, you won't know how to answer those questions. You won't know, how do I actually respond to this, because everything will be so frightening that the world has completely changed for you. A minute ago, you were thinking about, I have to go to work tomorrow, I have this bill to pay, I have that responsibility. And now all of a sudden you're being asked about something maybe you didn't think about for 50 years. What do you mean? What does La ilaha illallah mean? What do you mean God is one? So we prepare that person. We remind that person. We have to remind ourselves first before you make it someone else's responsibility to remind you. In your life, think about, what does it mean to believe in Tawheed? What does it mean to believe in Adalat and Nabuwat and Imamat and Ma'ad? And one of the easiest ways to do this is ask yourself the question, why do I believe God is one? Why do I believe God is just? Why do I believe that Allah sent prophets and imams? And why do I believe that there is a day of judgment? The ability to answer these questions, our 6th Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq alayhi salam, he would give the advice that all of you mu'mineen do istinbat, do research and understand how to answer these questions in your own voice. And then make dua to Allah to save these answers that you came up in your own words under His arsh until the day when you need them. That I thought about this subject so much that I'm not repeating what my mother said, what my father said, what the Sheikh said, what anyone said. I'm saying what I believe because I've written this and I've prepared this in my own language, so that tomorrow when the question comes upon me, I can answer it in my own words, and that Allah will preserve those words for me to assist me in that time of difficulty. And it's true, we all know this, that a person's true character comes out when they're in a state of difficulty. So if these elements aren't tied to my character and truth, they won't be able to assist me when I'm in a state of difficulty. Now the fundamental of understanding this, that my true success is staying on Islam, and that the environment is a danger for me that threatens my Islam constantly. One of the great responsibilities that we have is to ensure that your children stay on Islam. The verse we begin with is وَوَصَّى بِهَا Ibrahim. Ibrahim made this a wasiyah. Yaqub made this a wasiyah. That preserve religion in your lineage and prepare them to make sure that your children will always be a Muslim. Sometimes you have the concern, my child should be a doctor, my child should be a lawyer, my child should be an engineer. All of this is dunya. It means nothing if they have no iman in their akhirah. We know this, but we don't think about this. I'll explain why. If you ask a parent who's doing everything for their child, for example, to be a professional soccer player, I want my child to be a professional soccer player. Today go to them and say, okay, I'll make you a deal. I'll make your child a professional soccer player, but he can't be a Muslim anymore. Which parent would accept it? Nobody would. If I said I could make your child the best doctor in the entire world, but he's not a Muslim anymore, which parent would accept it? Nobody would. But the mistake we make is that we don't train our child in these subjects now, and we focus on doctor, lawyer, engineer so much that they themselves forget about Islam. Islam disappears because we didn't make it important to talk about it and prepare for it. So this is why, as much as we want our children to succeed in dunya, it has to be understood that there's no success in dunya without success in akhirah. There's no point in it. The point is that I should have dunya and akhirah. This is why we make the dua, رَبَّنَا أَعْتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Oh Allah, give me goodness in this world and the hereafter, and protect me from the punishment of fire of hell. So this is why it's very important to do this work to make sure that our children follow this religion as well. In the same way that we work hard to preserve our Islam, I continuously teach my children and I make them educated that the most important thing you possess is Islam. Protect your Islam first. If to be a doctor, if to be a lawyer, if to be a soccer player, if to be anyone that you want to be, I have to sacrifice my iman, it's not worth going down that path. And this is why as children come and they make their decisions, and we like to ask our children, what do you want to be when you grow up? Ask them, can you be a Muslim if you pick this profession? Have you thought about what your Islam is going to look like when you go down this path? Now, to do this, there are some instructions that come to us from the Ahlul Bayt on how to make sure that you preserve iman inside of your children. So the first of these comes from a dua in Tafsir al-Ayyashi. That a man comes to our fifth Imam Muhammad ibn Ali al-Baqir alayhi salam. He comes to Imam Baqir and he complains. He says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, I'm worried about my son. Society is influencing my child. Remember, the influence of society is not something we started fearing here, but no, because the follower of Madhab Ja'fari and lovers of Ahlul Bayt were always few, society was always something we were afraid of influencing our families and our children and trying to separate us from Ahlul Bayt. So he complains, he says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, I'm worried that society is corrupting and influencing my children and taking them away from Iman. Imam Baqir gives him a prescription and he says, command them to pray and teach them the book of Allah and keep them near you. If you give them Iman and religion, you have given them everything. The instruction of the Imam is first the primary responsibility of ensuring Salat is mandated. Ensure that Salat is there. Inna as-salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. That prayer is what keeps us away from sin and indecency. If I want my child to be protected from the attacks of shaitan and stay on Iman, the first thing I have to do is build his fundamental of Salat. When we look at a human being and we say that there is basic nutrition the body needs, we say that if I don't give my child the right food, my child doesn't grow. They're healthy and they don't grow. Or they don't grow properly. Or they may have other sicknesses and diseases in their body. It's the same condition for the soul. If you don't nourish the soul correctly, the soul doesn't grow. And if it doesn't grow, then it is something that is weak and that can be overcome. The nourishment of the soul is the wajib salat. I have to make sure, the same way I make sure my child eats, I have to make sure that my child prays, so that that soul continues to develop and get healthy. Allah's prescription of salat as being wajib is to say that in you, O insan, is a ruh. This ruh needs nourishment. The same way the malaika who are made of light, their nourishment is the ibadat of Allah. My soul's nourishment is the ibadat of Allah. I have to make sure that that soul preserves. And the same way, if I want to protect my child from the negative influences of society, it will happen when my child's soul is strengthened and encouraged. And the same is true for all of us. The second hadith that we mentioned, that comes from our sixth Imam, Ja'far ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq alayhi salam. A man comes and complains to Imam Sadiq and he says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, my child has no spirituality. And my child disobeys me. He doesn't listen. Not just about boys, girls can be disobedient too. Don't worry, we're using boys as the example, but it works for both. My child is disobedient, they don't listen. And they have no ruhaniyah, they have no spirituality in them, they have no fear or ihsas of Allah. Imam Sadiq says, did you teach them Kitab Allah? Did you teach them from the Quran? And the man replies, no, he was very young, so I delayed it. I put it off to another time. I didn't invest in teaching him from the Quran because I thought he was too young. I thought they were too small to learn this. I waited, when they get older, then they'll learn. Imam Sadiq replies and he said, you have made him give up a great protection from the evil of shaitan. Now take the time to teach the Quran because it is something that protects the iman. وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَلَا يَزِيدُ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا خَسَارًا. Allah in the Quran describes it, He says, we reveal this Quran as a protection and a healing for the believers. And the disbelievers gain nothing from it except a loss. If we believe in the word of Quran, then the yaqeen that we should have is that these words that Allah has chosen to reveal to us have a benefit for us that we can't see. So the same way that if salat is the nourishment of the soul, the Quran is the antibiotics and the cures for the soul from all of the hardships and the harm that's out there. When we pair these two together, we build a complete immune system to protect us from what's going on in society, ensure that iman remains and stays with us. Now, if you notice, the hadith of Imam Baqir that we mentioned three things. Teach him Quran, teach him Salat, teach him Quran, and keep him with you. That third point was emphasized again by our seventh Imam, Al-Musa Al-Kadhim alayhi salam. A man comes to Imam Kadhim And which is why sometimes you'll say to someone, you should go to Hajj, and they say, no, I haven't eaten my 100 mice yet. Meaning there are more sins, na'uzubillah, that I still have to commit before I go and I fix myself. But let me ask you something. Allah never guaranteed us life. Allah never guaranteed us the next breath. It is His mercy that I inhale and He gives me life long enough to exhale. There's a discussion that says, tell me when you'll die, I'll tell you if you're old or if you're young. A person who's going to die at 25 and he's 23 is very old. His life is almost finished. But the same thing, a person who is 65 but will die at 95, he has 35 years of life, 30 years of life left in front of him. This is why we don't know who amongst us is old and who amongst us is young. Don't delay the aspect of changing your character and becoming a better person. Don't delay the process of connecting with Allah, lest that we don't have a chance to connect with Allah before this life is over. So hence, the responsibility we have is preserve this iman. When you make decisions in your life, make sure that you remember that my goal is that I will die as a Muslim. I don't want to do something that if I died in this moment or if I died in this decision, it would be hard to determine if I'm a Muslim. And I would not be sure that in the eyes of Allah, do I have iman or not? And make that as part of our decision-making process, that success in life will be that Islam is my primary characteristic that I'm judging myself on, and then comes everything else, and not the other way around. We raise our hands in dua. ندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم. 10 times we call out, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Ya Mahmud bihaqqi Muhammad, Ya A'la bihaqqi Ali, Ya Fatirus Samawat bihaqqi Fatima, Ya Muhsin bihaqqi al-Hasan, Ya Qadim al-Ahsan bihaqqi al-Hussein. Oh Allah, accept this small ibadat from us. Ya Allah, give the thawab of this majlis, this recitation of Quran and dua that we've done in this month and the siyam that we've done in this month, to our marhumin, the marhumin of the sponsors of these majalis, and all of those who have no one to remember them in their du'as. Ya Allah, we've gathered here with hajat by the right of Shahr Ramadan and the Quran you have revealed in it and the wasila of Ahlul Bayt. Fulfill our hajat. Those amongst our family, our community that are suffering through sickness and disease, give shafa'at to the mu'mineen wherever they are. Those who are in war and in strife and insecurity, Ya Allah, protect the innocent people, remove the difficulties of oppression, and give aman and safety to all of the believers wherever they may be. Oh Allah, keep our children on the upright path of Islam. Give us all the tawfiq that we don't die except that we are Muslimeen. Oh Allah, hasten the reappearance of Sahib al-Zaman. Make us, our families, our children from the supporters of Sahib al-Zaman. Entitle us to ziyarat of Ahlul Bayt in this world, and the shafa of Ahlul Bayt in the hereafter. Once again, remembering our marhumin, the marhumin of tonight's sponsors, all of those people who were here with us last year and this year, they're not. And all of those who have no one to recite Fatiha for them, 1 Surah Fatiha, 3 times Surah Ikhlas, and your loudest of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.